Is Nelson Velázquez the real deal? Should we be giving up on Jordan Walker? Should Ivan Herrera even be catching anymore? We all know you want to hear Bernie Miklasz' opinion on all of those things. And so Bernie's our special guest here on Deal on the Cards with Sandy, Josh, and Adam as we discuss all these things and more in Cardinals camp on this episode of Deal on the Cards. Hey, welcome into Deal on the Cards. We're kind of running it like a radio show today. The three of us are starting off, and we're going to have a special guest phoning in here soon to jump in with us. You know him and love him as Bernie Miklasz, who does a million things in the St. Louis Cardinals media and is an absolute legend. And I think we have a bunch of fun topics today that Bernie's addressed on Twitter and various videos recently, so you've maybe heard some of his thoughts on them already. But we want to kind of dissect a little bit of these three main topics today, guys, and we'll kind of set the stage before Bernie joins us here soon. Obviously, Nelson Velázquez, I feel like, has really gained some steam over the last few days on Twitter and among Cardinals camp, but obviously the Cardinals have had their eye on him since the winter when they brought him in as a non-roster invite minor league signee to be a part of this left field competition, right-handed power. We have the Jordan Walker conundrum, which is like a 2-year conversation running now at this point. Make it 3 if you want to go back to 2023. And what on earth is going on there? And I think we have some tidbits from Brian Walton, who's down there just kind of on his demeanor right now. And we have just what we see on the field, and we have the context the last few years. And then we've got Ivan Herrera, who is dealing with some knee inflammation. Obviously, he's back and ready to go, but it kind of does underscore the idea again. Is his bat more important than putting him behind the plate defensively? So we've got a lot of topics to hit today. I'm curious for you guys before Bernie jumps on here today. Those are the three main ones we're hitting today. Is there anything from Cardinals camp today over the last few days that's kind of caught your eye that we can kind of banter a little bit here before our good friend Bernie joins us?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a lot of exciting storylines here, guys. I'm very excited for the beginning of the season. I think one thing I'm kind of looking at here is really dissecting Victor Scott and even Nathan Church. A lot of, both of these guys are hitting the ball really hard to start the spring. Obviously, small sample size, but if you look more granularly at the bat speed, both of these guys are showing out, and it looks like there are improvements in their offensive game. So we'll see how that translates into the season, but I kind of want to hear what you guys have to say too. Sandy, Josh.
It's been a loaded spring so far, right? It's been probably the most open spots the Cardinals have entered camp with in a really long time. So there's been a ton to watch. I know we're going to be mostly talking about the offense today, but I think things on the pitching side have been so much fun. I addressed this on Twitter the other day, but this is the most fun we've had with rotation competition in forever, right? And I still feel like I don't know which way they're going to go. So I think it's going to get right down to the end of spring where we're really wondering, is it Fitz, is it Palante, is it Leahy? It's probably going to be two of those three. But it's going to be really tough. And then the bullpen today too, a little shakeup. I think if we were to do our roster projections again, Josh, I don't know if Matt Bouchard would make my bullpen now. And if he doesn't make the bullpen, because he's a guy that they added via the Rule 5 draft, that makes things very interesting. It's going to open up a spot, which maybe that's something they use on the offensive side to bring a guy like Velasquez into the fold, or it's something that they use to bring another reliever onto the roster. And maybe you see them give Luis Gastelum a shot. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we get to the end of spring, but there's just so much. I'm excited for what we have to talk about today, though. It's going to be good to focus in on these three things.
Yeah, speaking of that, like Chris Roycroft looked good today and has got a lot of really good reviews out of camp, so maybe he can steal that Bouchard spot, and he's already on the 40-man. You have Packy. Yeah, I was going to say Packy Naughton's looked really good in camp when Justin Brill really hasn't yet. Soriano. So, Soriano and Brill and Roycroft are on the 40-man already, but Packy's not, so maybe Packy can steal one of those spots. I'll be curious to see how that goes. Yeah, so we've got a lot we can talk about other than that too, but our good friend Bernie Miklasz has joined us in here, so I'm going to throw him up on the stage too. The man, the myth, the legend, our good friend Bernie. How are you, man?
I'm good. I got to say, I thought maybe I did something wrong. I got cut from the squad, or it's really, maybe I was designated for assignment.
No way.
By dealing the cards. No, I love you guys. It's great to be back. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I can guarantee you no 40-man manipulation going on here, service time, whatever. We love you. And so it'd been way too long, so we had to make it happen.
Yeah, I thought I was Andre Granillo or something. I thought that was it, so anyway.
We traded you for Adam. We saw some specs in his profile. We wanted to test him out. So.
By the way, let me just say this, and I mean it. First of all, it's wonderful to be with you. And, number two, I want to congratulate you for, dealing the cards was great as it is. And it was huge, a huge entry into the marketplace. And you guys have gotten more and more prominent, which makes me very happy. But also just the way you've expanded it with all kinds of new offerings, really, really impressive. And congratulations on that. And I've gotten to know Adam a little bit, just emailing and stuff. So I feel like I have a new friend. I still love Sandy and I still love Josh. Andrew, no, I'm only
watching this live.
So anyway, so now that my jokes are out of the way, let's talk ball. Yeah.
Let's talk ball, Bernie. Well, hey, one person who's not been a joke so far in camp, Nelson Velázquez, that power really plays. And obviously the Cardinals brought him in for a reason over the offseason. I think we kind of went under the radar. People talked about and covered it, but I think we're all kind of looking, okay, who's the real right-handed bat they're going to bring in at some point? Maybe this is the guy. Like Bernie, what have you seen from Velasquez, whether it's in camp or just kind of over his big league career, minor league career so far? And do you think this could be the answer on opening day for the Cardinals in left field?
Right now, it seems like it because they have a spot, and he's done. Once they sent Baez down, which was inevitable and the right move. No one's done more to deserve a chance, the opportunity to start on opening day in left field than Velasquez. I mean, yeah, his February was a little quiet, but he's getting acclimated and all that. But I think in the month of March, we've seen why Heimblum and his people they thought he was a worthy candidate to kind of not a low risk move, but a no risk move, minor league contract. But I did some my version of a deep dive and was trying to make sense of his major league career before this. And, and one of the things I found is his .433 slugging percentage in the majors was better than I thought in terms of, where it rated. I think it put him, and I forget it, I had this information. It put him in I'm just going to kind of throw a number in there that's close enough to being fully accurate. But his .433 slugging percentage amongst a bunch of hitters, I mean, a couple hundred at least hitters, 400 and some hitters that have had at least 600 plate appearances since 2022. He was in the 25th, 28th percentile. I mean, it's a really respectable slugging percentage. And if you look back, and I know this is small sample stuff, but you look back to 2023, and among major league hitters that had 160 plate appearances that year, and there were a lot of them, the dude was sixth in slugging percentage in the majors, and he had the number one home run ratio in the majors. And again, I want to say it again, it definitely a small sample, but if you're a power guy, you either hit for power, you don't, no matter what the sample size is. So there are a lot of things there. There were a lot of things there to like. And he had people have asked me, well, what happened to him? Why did he flame out? And I said, I'll give you 4 words. Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, same thing. He just plate discipline just went to hell. And he had to regroup. It put him out of the major leagues. He had to regroup, but he's fixed it. That's the thing about him that has really impressed me. And he showed the signs of that in Mexico and at AAA last year, where his strikeout rate fell below 20% and his walk rate went up. And if you look at him so far this spring, and again, I know it's only spring training, but it's the only thing we have to talk about because it's the only thing that exists right now. He's 5 walks, 2 strikeouts. He takes great at bats. I'm actually kind of excited about him for the reasons that I explained, because he has done this in the past. This isn't like a thing that out of the blue, he's never done anything like this, where actually he has done this. But except now he appears to be a better all-around hitter. That's the hope anyway, because his plate discipline has been sharpened up. Whether that lasts, I don't know, but it's pretty impressive the way he's improved that part.
Yeah, absolutely, Brent. Those are all fantastic points. And I don't think enough can be said about the improvements that Nelson Velázquez made as over the past year, and especially getting the show out in spring training. But I did also want to get your thoughts that he's not the only guy in the outfield for sure competing for a spot. I also want to give credence to Nathan Church for the improvements that he's made, the high floor that he also brings as a third, probably fourth outfielder, but in the rebuilding year, anything goes. I want to see what you had to say about balancing Velasquez's mini breakout, if you will, because it is spring, but there are takeaways. Balancing that with the somewhat pedigree that a Nathan Church brings and the opportunity that he could have for a breakout in 2026.
I love Nathan Church last year in 2025 when he was just, zooming up the minor league ladder. Whether it be, in columns or videos, or mostly columns and different observations, KMOX a lot. I would name check him a lot because I thought he was having an outstanding year, and the defense is there, the speed is there. He gets on base. He works counts. The power is sneaky good. Not saying it's great, but it's sneaky good. He's just a real professional. And I know that having spoken with Chaim Bloom about him, I mean, the Cardinals, and I'm talking about Bloom, and I think this goes for Ali Marmol as well, but Chaim Bloom loves Nathan Church. Rob Cerfolio loves Nathan Church. I mean, they're really up on him. So one way or the other, he's going to figure prominently into the outfield plans. And no one's saying. I always like, for references, I always like to go back in history just to throw a name in there. I'm not saying he's Freddie Lynn, but this guy's a good ball player, and I think that I give him a mulligan for coming up when he did last year, and he was a little. I think we all agree on this. He was a little anxious. He was a little jumpy. That happens. That's nothing. I think the real guy shows up this year. He's good.
Yeah. Do you think that similar things could be said of Thomas Saggese or Jose Fermin, who are also in that mix, where if Velasquez does run with that left field job, I mean, it probably depends on how much Ivan Herrera catches versus DHs and such, but the opportunities start to become thin, at least consistent opportunities for guys like that, unless they do make a move with Nolan Gorman or Jordan Walker to lessen some of that playing time, or even Victor Scott in center. Do you see credence for the idea of, okay, trying to work those guys in, or are we making too much out of the opportunities for those guys?
Man, the more positions that guys can play without embarrassing themselves, the better. And I think, listen, I'm like everybody else. I'm reluctant to attach too much importance to spring training stats, but I always look at it this way. This is my own personal standard. I think when a guy goes to camp, not all players are created equal in terms of what they have to do at spring training. Established veterans with great track records, good track records, they can work on things. I don't care if they hit $130. Nobody cares. But when you go to camp and you really do have to prove something, because everyone's looking at you, the coaches, the front office, the manager, fans, the media, everyone's looking. Okay, this is a competition. What do you got? I do think it's fair to kind of judge that. I'm not saying you make a final verdict. I'm not saying that, but this is my long-winded ways, and I'm disappointed in Fermin, the way he has showed out so far in spring training. I don't know that that's who he is, because we all talked him up last year when he had a chance to play. I mean, he was really impressive. He brings a lot to the dance in terms of his plate approach and everything else. But I just wish he'd get something going this spring. It doesn't foreclose on him having a role out there. I'd feel better about it if he got some momentum on his side. But I like Saggese. And Saggese, listen, you talk about small sample. I mean, before he left camp, he was good. He was real good, and he looked comfortable. He looked confident. And, if they want to put him in the old Tommy Edman role, I think that's fantastic. Because you can put them in a lot of different places. But I really do believe I'm sold on Velasquez only the extent he deserves that shot first in left field. He's done enough to earn that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. And if the Cardinals had gone out and gotten that right-handed bat, that person would probably be, one of the last guys on the bench, would barely be filling in. But instead, they went out and they brought in Velasquez, and he looks good. But I feel like a lot of voices in the Cardinal space are still casting him as this type of like single-year stopgap player. Do you think that's the case, or do you think beyond this year, Velasquez is a guy that could play his way into the Cardinals' long-term or multi-year plans?
I hope he does, because they're not exactly. Yeah, Baez is
stud.
He's a gift from the sun gods or whatever, but he hopefully he's going to be around a long time. But the thing of it is like, I gotta say it, it's just hard to feel, and I know we'll get into this, it's really hard to feel great about Jordan Walker. And it's not just spring training, which is really, really, really bad, and getting worse by the day, but it's a continuation of what we've been watching for 2 years, and that's depressing. But anyway, I don't know what their outfield situation is going to look like. I'm talking about the front office as they project ahead. Baez is a keeper, right? I think Nathan Church is a keeper. I don't know where Walker is going to land. I just don't know if what will happen this season will completely change their minds about whether to stay the course with him, unless, of course, he improves. I'm a Victor Scott guy, except, and I recognize his attributes and appreciate them, but he's another guy, though. I worry about some of the underlying stuff that is not exactly easy to dismiss, like his slow bat speed and some other things, hitting the ball in the air too much, not putting his speed to work. Yeah, could we just transpose Walker and Victor? Hey Victor, you do the Jordan Walker thing. Hit that baby on the ground all the time. Hey Walker, you do the Victor Scott thing. Get it in the air. You probably have two great hitters if they could do that, right?
So, yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
I know. How are you? Let me ask you guys a question. How do you? We can get into Walker. We can table him for bigger discussion. But go around the table here. What are your thoughts on Victor Scott?
I really like him. I don't know if I think he deserves the kind of runway that I think they're giving him right now, where he's like, Penn, he is our center fielder, no questions asked. And maybe that's not actually their full stance. But I think Nathan Church is closer to Victor Scott than Victor Scott is to Mason Wynn and Ivan Herrera and guys like that. So not at all advocating that he shouldn't be the opening day center fielder, that he shouldn't be starting in June. But I also wouldn't be shocked if we're mid-September and Nathan Church is the guy. And we're trying to figure out what is Victor Scott's future, because he does have a lot to prove offensively at this point. I love that I see him bunting in camp, and I love some of the changes we've seen, but like you say this a lot, we have to work with what we know, and so far he is a 40% below league average hitter, and no matter how good your defense is and how fast you are, that's not going to play long term the more expensive you get as a player. And so obviously the defense is incredible, the speed's incredible. I'm a huge Victor Scott guy, but at some point the results have to start backing it up. Yeah. So I'd say I'm in on him, and I think he's going to figure it out, but I'm also not convinced he's the guy for the next 3 years. Adam, what would you say?
Yeah, I think I would agree with maybe about 50% of that, especially the latter half. I'll start with the first, in that Victor Scott is actually, we were talking about this, Bernie, before you actually hopped in here, that his bat speed has actually improved decently this spring. And, he's going to be the hard hit percentage as it is going to be dragged down because he's trying to bunt, and that's part of his game and his MO. But if you eliminate those batted ball attempts and just isolate for when he's actually swinging away, it's actually a 53% hard hit rate, including today. He had like a 98 mile an hour EV. So I do believe that Victor deserves some credence and his flowers for improving some bat speed throughout the spring. And this is the kind of metrics that stabilize very quickly. You're swinging a bat. There's no, and the thing is, you get warmed up as the season goes when you're a player as young as he is in his mid-20s. So if he's swinging it, this hard, this early in the season, I'm thinking that there's a little bit more meat on the bone to pick here with Victor. And you take that with, hopefully he increases his bat to ball abilities, which I think are pretty decent as it is. Hopefully the sweet spot percentages are better. You combine that with the elite defense, the elite base running, the arm strength, whatever it is, it's not great, but I think the makings and the ingredients there, guys, are there for a 2.5, potentially 3-win player, dare I say. Even if he's a 90 WRC plus hitter, given I think he was a 76 WRC plus last year, all things considered, I think a 15% increase in that production isn't just out of the world to predict, especially in his second full season in the big leagues. I am buying in on Victor Scott, but I also will agree with what you said, Josh, that Nathan Church isn't so far behind, and in a year of experimentation, they're going to give everybody as many opportunities as possible to see who sticks and goes forward. So I'm a Victor Scott truther, but I also see what you have to say with Nathan Church chugging along and deserving opportunities as well, which is why I asked you about him versus Velasquez, although you can't go wrong with either one right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that a lot of it has to do with Walker. But thanks for that info, Adam, because I honestly had not checked his bat speed to see if anything was moving there. So that's good to know. Thank you.
I hope it doesn't sound like I was a Victor Scott hater either. It's interesting that he gets thrown in kind of in the category of runway with Ivan Herrera, Mason Wynn, JJ Weatherhole. And it's like, he deserves, but he's not. I think it's clearly he's his own caliber of player right now. He's not Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman either, but I wouldn't throw him in that class either.
By the way, I'm bouncing around all over the place. So I don't mean to disrupt the flow, but I'll be quick. But Nolan Gorman's got some things going on, and I'm not saying this because he doubled and tripled today. I'm not. He's got some stuff going on. It is spring training, but with Nolan Gorman, you're looking for any kind of trend that's going the right way. I don't care when it is, but he's not striking out. He's walking. He's got his on base percentage up to 323 or so. I think the quality of his plate approach looks pretty good. I mean, obviously the batting average, I'm not a huge batting average guy, but I don't dismiss it either. I think his batting average is influenced by like what appears to be terrible batted ball luck. But my point is that he's whereas with Walker, I don't see anything that I like. Seriously, there's just nothing there. I can say, okay, that's all right. Look at that. There's nothing there right now. And I know it's spring training and how many times I have to say that, but Gorman is like quietly doing some nice things that I don't know if it's going to lead to anything because we've been down this path before. But I kind of like this quiet improvement that he has displayed in spring training. It's kind of interesting.
We were literally talking about that in our chat earlier today. His swing decisions are far better. And again, It's camp, small sample size. We don't need to preface it every single time, but It's true. But at the same time, it does look better so far. And that's all we can really work from.
I think it always looks better with Gorman than Walker, though, to be honest, right? The lows of Gorman have never been the lows of Walker. And I think that bears mentioning where Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, and even other players sometimes, like I've seen people throw Mason Wynn into that group, get tossed into this one group when in reality there's levels to this, right? And so I think that sometimes Jordan Walker's, for lack of a better word, ineptitude so far in the big leagues has created this category that people want to throw multiple players into. And so, I think a lot of fans need to check themselves and say, look, Nolan Gorman has been frustrating, especially the last 2 years, but there's a huge difference between, 11 to 12% below league average, which is where Gorman's been, with hot streaks, with moments that he actually looks like a competent baseball player. And then what Walker's bringing you, which is 30 to 40% below league average. And so, I think, Nolan Gorman, it's always felt salvageable. It's always felt like this is something that we can get figured out. We've seen success and real success. What Walker was doing his rookie season in the first half of the season, which got people so hyped up in early 2023, that hit streak to open things up, it was unsustainable. And somebody pointed it out, and that person got shouted down by a bunch of people that said, oh, he's so young. But he was right. The attack angle was off. And there was a real problem with Jordan Walker's profile, and we've never seen it fixed. He made enough contact the second half of his rookie season to sort of dig his way out of it, but he still wasn't really putting the ball in the air. He wasn't maximizing his profile at all, versus what Gorman did in 2023, which was hit like an actual all-star for almost the entire year. And we've seen him do that. So I think with Gorman, it is salvageable. And I think there's a really good shot Gorman's on the team next year, and he's still in the organization's multi-year plans. But yeah, you're right, Bernie. Walker scares me. There's really nothing at this point in the profile. And if I was being honest and ordering players by how interested I am and what they can bring to the table long-term, there's nothing but pedigree keeping Jordan Walker on that list. If Jordan Walker had been drafted in the 11th round, he wouldn't have a shot anymore in the organization. Even what he did in the minor leagues, he never did it past AA. He's never succeeded at AAA so far. So
Sandy, that was brilliantly put, man. Good, excellent. I always, for the old crabby guy who doesn't hesitate to say whatever the hell he wants, I find myself like oddly backing away at times from like really hammering Walker, like in the point to where I do this, way too much. I did it in a video today, although my video today, I preface this by saying, let me get this out of the way. Yeah. I know he's only 23. Okay. Let me get that out of the way. You don't have to put it in the comment section. And, let me put it so, okay, I'm aware of his bat speed. I'm aware of his exit velocity. I'm aware of all that. You don't have to comment on it. I know all about it. But nothing else has worked. There's nothing there right now. And I just, I find myself like trying to do the, but he's only 23 thing. And it's like, I'm like really getting over that. It's like, as I said, I don't think I said in the video, I had a conversation with Randy Carricker today, and I said, he's entering his 4th season. He's got over 1,000 plate appearances. Yeah, he is a kid in terms of age, but the dude's been around a while now. This isn't like some guy that they just pulled out of the minors. Well, give him some time, but I'm really flat. I'm just flattened by what we're seeing this spring, because again, I think Jordan Walker did come to spring training with a lot to prove. And I also think Ollie in particular really talked him up. I don't think Chaim Bloom has nearly as much. And that's interesting to me too. But I understand where Ollie is trying to, I think Jordan Walker drives Ollie and all of them crazy. And that sort of came out when I asked Brent Brown about Walker on KMOX last September. But if you know that you've been one of the, like literally factually, whatever, one of the 3 or 4 worst players in baseball over the last 2 years, and dead last if we're talking about wins above replacement over the last 2 years. If you look at his percentiles in every offensive category, it's like, wow. I mean, he's like in the 4th percentile, 5th percentile, 7th percentile, 9th. It's like there's nothing. So where do you go with that? I mean, where's the payoff? How many years do you keep playing this, I'm showing my age here, broken record over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. So my gosh, like this spring, for example, what is it now? I think I updated it today, updated today. It's like, he's over 90% now this spring, with batted balls, either ground ball or infield pop-ups. He's over 90%. His ground ball rate after today is 68+%. His strikeout rate after today, struck out 3 times, totally non-competitive at bats. Yeah. It's like 35%. Like, in other words, I'll try to be a nice guy, but like, give me something I can grab. There's nothing, right? There's nothing. Yeah. And he looks like a beaten guy too. He just looks like it's kind of a bummer to watch him.
For sure.
He doesn't look like he enjoys playing baseball. So I'll shut up now, Arnie.
No, I mean, I think we're curious, like, to your point, there's levels to this. If he looks broken and is 40% below league average and pop-ups and ground balls 90% of the time, that's one thing. If he's, struggling and you see signs of improvement, that's another. I guess it's a twofold question. If it looks this bad going into the year and it does not improve, I think we all understand why they're giving him the runway to start the year. But how long should that opportunity last before? I know Jose Fermin isn't like the most incredible guy in the world, but when do you start giving Thomas Ajayci and Jose Fermin and Nathan Church starts in right field over Jordan Walker if he looks that bad? And then I guess the next level to it is like, okay, if he's struggling, but there are signs of improvement, do you give him the full year to figure it out? Or is it once Joshua Baez comes knocking, sayonara? Like, what's your kind of feel for how long they should let this experiment go on this year?
It's boy, believe me, I'm not ducking the question because I don't do that. If I had an opinion, I'd blast away. But it's hard for me to put a finite number on it for reasons you just said, because I can watch a guy that overall the number's not good, the profile's not good, but you see this, you see that, you see some going up instead of down and some other areas, and then you say, okay, it's just a glimmer, it's just a flash, it's just a little sparkle, it's not enough to get all excited about, but at least there's a little something. He's got he's not building up this great profile, but he's got like the Play-Doh out and he's making like little play. And I'm not implying he's a child, by the way. I'm just saying, he's got the Play-Doh out and he's kind of fooling with it, and you see a couple things taking shape, kind of, forming, kind of. And it's like, so I could see maybe, I'm sort of repeating what you said. Then I could see in that situation, you ride with it a little longer, but my gosh, if you go 2 months in, and only because it's a rebuilding year, you go 2 months in and it's this futile and he's this defeated. I'm going to get to the point where I say, what is the point exactly anymore?
Yeah, those are all, I think you nailed the head and you hit the nail right on the head there, Bernie. And I kind of did want to see just how much time did you have with us until you said you had to go? I know you're kind of running short on time. The Thursdays might be a little busy.
I can stay if you want me to. I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I made sure to get my stuff done today. So I got my column filed right before I came on, and I can stay a while, but again, I don't want to get in the way of anything you guys have planned.
No, this is great. We just want to make sure we're being respectful of your time.
No, we're good. Now, something was on my plate when I told you. I think I might only have 20 minutes because usually it's one of those times of days where it's just kind of crazy. But wasn't on my plate, so I had one thing out of the way I didn't have to deal with. So yeah, I can hang.
Sweet, love that.
Perfect. Yeah, and just to kind of switch gears here. We know that, I wanted to talk about the catching situation. That's something I've been keeping my eye on all spring and even before. So I was kind of curious how that situation would play out. But again, Bernie, I want to get your thoughts on it. We know Chaim is on record stating that they're going to give Ivan Herrera as many opportunities to be the long-term catcher for the future. And obviously his injury kind of throws a wrench into things. They have plenty of contingency options, but thinking about the plethora of starting caliber catching options between Pages, who I think is a glove first solid everyday catcher, who knows how much the offense will improve there. Jimmy Crooks, who is a top 100 prospects by some outlets, and also a glove first superstar with obviously defensively running points. And then you got Leonardo Bernal on the 40-man roster, and then Rhino Rodriguez will be knocking on the door in a couple of years. So just thinking about 2026, how do you think that front office will go about kind of weighing the idea of finding Ivan a permanent home versus finding a little bit of continuity at the two?
I love Herrera. Don't get me wrong, I really do. He's such an exciting talent, but I'm increasingly confused by the catching conundrum, because I'll just base it on this. He's got a very special bat, and I was looking at earlier today because I might try to maybe do a video or something on it tomorrow. I was just looking at the last 2 seasons when we put him in there with catchers. In other words, the plate appearances he's made only as a catcher, and all the other catchers, their at bats, plate appearances only when they're catching. And Herrera's the best. I mean, he's the best hitting catcher in Major League Baseball over the last 2 years. But here's the problem. The last 2 years, because of injuries, because he gets beat up and because it's just one thing after another, he can't help it that he gets hurt, but he gets hurt a lot. He's averaged the last 2 years. Again, this is the best offensive, other than maybe Cal Riley. I probably should say that. Yeah. Cal probably be one, but I mean, Herrera is like, in terms of all the different categories, he's right up there. But I got a little carried away there, but he's one of the 2 or 3 best hitting catchers in baseball. There's no doubt about it. But he's averaged only 355 plate appearances the last 2 years, and that I want to see that at 550, right? I want to get greedy. I want to see that at an average of 575. Heck, I'll take 500. But 355 plate appearances a year is not going to cut it for me, because Adam, which you said, among other things, if they had nothing in line at catcher, they have all kinds of options and attractive options. They have guys on the way. Rodriguez could be one of the more exciting players that's ever come through their system. So when you're loaded up at catcher in a way I've never seen, in fact, I was laughing when Fangraphs came out with their top 53 Cardinals prospects, and they had a catcher at number 29 I never heard of. Like, there was a fourth. I said, what? A fourth guy now? What? You know, that doesn't even include Herrera. I'm like, what? 4 catchers in your top 29? So my thing, and I know I sound exasperated, but it's like, what are we doing here? I mean, get him to another position. He's got pretty quick feet. He runs pretty well, especially if a catcher. In fact, he's arguably the best base running catcher there is when you look at his speed and even just his base running ability compared to other catchers. You can prepare him to play somewhere else, and you can DH him. But I don't understand trying to kind of wedge this thing in, when the more he catches, the more he doesn't play because he gets hurt. He just gets beat up. He gets worn down. And then you're losing about 200 plate appearances on average per season by fooling around with this catcher thing. And I agree to the theory. I totally agree with it. It would be tremendous value, extra value, or just flat out tremendous value if you have a catcher who can hit like this. There's no doubt about it. But if the catcher ain't catching because the catcher's on the IL all the time, well, where's the extra value in that? It doesn't exist. That's the answer. I mean, it works if he's catching a lot. But if injuries are preventing that, then I don't see where the value is. What I would see is, because if he's not getting hurt because he's not catching, the value would be getting another 200 plate appearances from him every year,
For sure.
And if any of you, seriously, gentlemen, I respect you. If you think I'm missing something, tell me. I'm not one of these thin-skinned people. Go ahead. You can tell me I'm full of it or whatever.
I've started to flip-flop on this a little bit, because I feel like all offseason I was like, man, it's exciting to see him get the extra value extracted potentially out of him to be a catcher.
Right.
But like, winter warm-up, he talked about he used to be terrible against left-handed pitching. He was an 89 WRC plus from 2022 to 2024. Last offseason, he made a concerted effort to get better against lefties, and he was second to Aaron Judge in all of baseball against southpaws last year, 205 WRC plus. And his production against righties dropped a little bit, but it makes me think, okay, you give this guy a bat in his hands and just say, hey, focus on that 24/7.
Right.
He's already shown the ability to make strides from well below league average to the second best right-handed bat against left-handed pitching in all baseball in one off season. If he can balance that out a little bit and be among the best platoon hitters in baseball against left-handed, and then not even just hold his own against righties, but get back to 30% above league average, we're talking about a clear top 10 bat in the game right there. Who cares what position you play at that point?
That's right.
DH, who cares? Like once your bat's that good, it does not matter. And so that's where I mean, and then you see the catching talent as well. I don't know, Sandy and Adam, do either of you guys like really want to see the catching thing continue, or are you kind of at this point like, give me pies, give me crooks, give me something else, like get that bat in the lineup?
I feel like I'm talking myself out of the catching thing, and then like I'll talk to you or Andrew, and you guys are like, no, he's got to catch. So
I'm back out now.
Okay, because I think I've been on this like Herrera to the outfield train for a long time, and maybe that's a minority position right now. I do think he needs to play a position if possible. Even if it's not catching, I would love to see him in the outfield. I think he can stay healthier out there. I think he can get his bat in the lineup every day. And I do think that modern teams, for the most part, aside from the Dodgers who have Shohei Ohtani, and he does what he does, and you don't need him to play position because he's winning you MVPs with just his bat. And as Andrew would always like to say, he pitches. Aside from that, smart modern teams are using the DH spot to cycle players through, to rest players, and to essentially have 10 position players a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like if you're sitting a guy once every 9 days, that seems to be how teams want to do this. The Cardinals did a little bit of that early on with like Goldschmidt and Arenado, and it seemed to be a big part of why those guys were so successful at one point in time. So I think he does need to play a position. And if it's not going to be catcher, I'm still in on this outfield experiment. I was really excited when they were going to try it last year. I really hope they go back to it at some point. I know he seems to have expressed that he doesn't necessarily want to do that, but being able to get him into the field, in addition to the value it can provide you, right? Like the fact that Judge is a solid enough defender, but he doesn't take up your DH spot and does what he does at the plate. If you can get a light version of that with Herrera, I think it's super valuable. So smart teams use the DH really effectively. I want to see the Cardinals be able to do that. Obviously, Josh, you're right. If he's a top 10 bat in the game, he's in the lineup, that's good enough. But why stop there?
Yeah, and Andrew or Sandy, you're totally on that with, we talked about that zero-sum game quasi idea with like 6,000 PAs. You can get 10 guys and swivel them, get 500 PAs for all of them if you really wanted to, and figure out the rest some other way. One thing I did want to build on about what Bernie had mentioned is that, if you can get, even 110 games out of Ivan Herrera behind the plate, fringy to average defense, he had that shoulder procedure, and apparently that's what's been hindering his arm strength throughout the past couple of years. Whether that was kind of a scapegoat or not, I do want to see what he has this year once he comes back from that knee injury and give him that opportunity to catch, because just like you guys said, if he can stick behind the plate with the bat that he brings, he's got a very deep bag, and I think he can be a top 5 catcher in baseball. I think you throw him up there with William Contreras, Cal Raleigh, et cetera, et cetera. And I think with the rest of the games, you have a premium backup in Pedro Pages. And let's say they decide to move away from Pages and they have Jimmy Crooks. Whatever the case is, they have such a good problem on their hands. This is exactly the kind of issues you want. You would rather have to choose between so many starting caliber catchers versus having to scramble and patch together a contingency plan because you didn't do your homework. You didn't have anything set up there. The Cardinals are in a great spot going forward. Whatever happens will be perfect. And I really hope, and we mentioned, I know Josh was on this train too, to wrap up, I really hope they don't rush a decision because they don't need to this year. Take every opportunity to get as large of a sample from as many players as possible to allow yourself to make a more educated decision at the deadline next offseason. There's no need to rush a decision here with the catching situation, no matter how many playable guys they have at the major league level right now.
Yeah, the thing, I'll be quick here. What you say makes a lot of sense because, again, that's what this year's set aside for. So if this is one last chance to see if they could make that work, I get it. I get it. I'm probably jaundiced by it is the injury concern, and I'm jaundiced by I'm not saying they're moving the goalposts or whatever, but it's I don't know if he's ever going to be able to throw well enough to even give anybody hesitation to stealing a base. Well, here's what I wanted to say though. I think I'm jaundiced because I was ready to buy into this idea, much like Josh was. I really was. I had an open mind about it. I had reservations, but at least I had an open mind. But so, okay, part of it is because of my many, many, many years of like listening to the Cardinals basically fib to us about injuries, and it just never ends. So you got to understand, I'm burned out on this because I've been dealing with it for, since 1996 with the Cardinals, right? It's always the same. So they tell us, well, he's going to have the elbow cleaned out. It's going to be, everything's going to be fine. And he knows he'll feel better, be able to throw better, blah, blah, blah. And you ask, like, will he be ready for spring training? Oh yeah, he'll be ready for spring training. Okay. He wasn't ready for spring training, right? He wasn't. And then even something on a smaller scale. And by the way, every injury he's had, they've underestimated how long he'll be out. They've always put the smiley, happy face on it, make it sound like he'll be back much sooner than was realistic. And I can't stand that. So even now, it's like, okay, he had the surgery. He can't do a lot of stuff yet, but they're going to try to ease him in a catcher. So, okay, then his knees hurt. And the reporters down there, the beat writers and everything else. So they ask Ollie, and Ollie's like, no, just we want that thing to calm down. It'll be a couple days. That's like 11 days ago, 11 or 12 days ago. And he's still not on the field. Unless he got in there today. I don't think he did. Did he? Did Herrera get it? Okay. He's got seven plate appearances this spring. It's opening day 2 weeks from now. So again, I admit maybe I'm impatient because of real-time events just have kind of left me jaundiced. You have a bat like that. It's like, I know they're in a rebuilding year, but I think fans want to see this guy. I think he's good for your business because he's an exciting talent that you can't see enough because he's always banged up with something. And it bothers me that, I don't care if it's a rebuilding year or not, it bothers me that we're sitting here on March the 12th. He's got 7 plate appearances. I mean, this is no way to get ready for the season, and so every time, like now, I'm willing to, by the way, I lied, I guess, because I'm going on, and I apologize. Every time that I'm kind of like, well, I'll try to be reasonable here. Because Adam, I mean that. You made a great case. You made a great point. But every time I want to kind of hug that a little bit, then I think about, or something happens where it's this or that. I'll say, no, that's only going to be a couple days, and then it's 2 weeks or whatever. It's like I'm kind of tired of the madness of it all. He's a hitter. You're wasting a precious natural resource because he's averaged 355 plate appearances the last 2 years. You're not getting 200 plate appearances a year more out of him. That's what I want to change. And I don't think it'll happen if he's catching.
I think you're right. And I think on top of that, even if the catching experiment goes well enough for him to stick there for like 80 games this year, there's a great chance that next year we're still talking about, is Herrera the primary catcher? And it's like, when would this experiment might never end? And honestly, with the talent the Cardinals have in the catching pipeline, I think I'm willing to say that I might prefer stability in the outfield right now to stability at the plate. Let's talk about the fact that the Cardinals haven't had a true stalwart in that outfield, especially at a corner spot, like a real outfield bat since Matt Holliday. Who's the last guy with a multi-year run of real production out there? I mean, it's all these guys. We're always the next guy. The next guy is the right guy. Whether it's Tommy Pham popping off in, 2017, Tyler O'Neill in 2021. You've had so many one-off years, so many like Grichuk, Piscotty, all these guys that at the end of the day were flashes in the pan. None of these guys have grown into that true, cornerstone foundational player. And I think Herrera can be that guy. And I think he can be that guy in left field for you. And you can plug him in there and he can just do it for the next 5-10 years if you'd extend him. He's got the skill set as a hitter to be really good at this game for a really long time. And the Cardinals just haven't had that. And when you look at the minor league system, aside from Baez, right now, who do you even project as being that guy in one of the corner spots? There are so many guys waiting for an opportunity behind Herrera at the plate. And I'm not talking about Pages. I'm talking about Bernal, Crooks, at some point, Reinel Rodriguez, Rahuno, who is farther down in the system, is going to be an interesting prospect in the near future, in my opinion. I think he's a fast riser at some point. So there's so much value there. And in the outfield, really, who is it? You can maybe argue Bader was an interesting player for the Cardinals for a few years, which I'll give you that, but he was a center fielder. He's in a different bucket. The Cardinals can develop defensive center fielders. They've got 2 of them right now that are starting caliber, but they just do not have that guy in the corner outfield spot who can be, who can carry the team, be the offense, be that superstar player, not even a superstar, just like a foundational franchise player that gets you through a stretch like this. And I think Herrera can give that to you. I think it's time to plug him in there. It's time to find him a permanent home. I'm tired of this, lack of stability out there. And it'd be really great for once to feel like that's a guy that's going to be here for a while. It's a jersey I can buy, and they're not just going to get rid of him soon. Who knows, though, right?
No, I mean, it's a great conversation because, I'm listening to Adam and I'm nodding because it makes sense. I'm listening to you and it makes sense. I mean, it's bewildering because even a guy like me who's got strong opinions all the time, I'm just kind of like, it's like, watching, one opinion here. Okay. Yeah, there's merit to that. Oh, there's more merit to this. It's like, I totally agree with you. It's what a sad state of affairs it's been in left field and for a long time. And what I think is funny really is it just takes me back. Matt Holliday was great. He was gold, man. He was so good. He was so consistent. And, earlier part of my career, which coincided when he was just a great Cardinal, like all the time, people ripping him all the time. My text message line at the radio station, people would just be going nuts. He's never had a big hit. There was always an underappreciation of Matt Holliday, in my opinion. And I know that it's disproportionate. We pay attention to the loudest and frankly dumbest voices. We give them too much oxygen. I'm guilty of that. But it wasn't until Matt Holliday was gone that you realize, well, wait a minute, they've tried to replace him now, like with, I think it's like 27 different left fielders.
Yeah.
Holliday, man.
It's whoever.
Yeah. I know.
Brown starting quarterback situation. It's a new guy every year.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I love that. Yeah, that's a good one. You got to make sure you got to get that in one of your columns, Adam. That's a good line, man. So
that is.
You taught me you're telling me to use some color. That might be something I can include somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Write a few jokes here and there. It's okay.
I love it. Well, Bernie, I feel like in a similar way where it's like the argument for Ivan Herrera catcher or move him off the position, you can see both sides of it. I feel like when you look at the Cardinals 2026 right now, I see some people are like, it's going to be a terrible year. And I'm like, yeah, I can see it. And I see others who are like, they're going to be better than you think is always relative, right? You got to have an expectation to start. But I think better than the perception is. I'm like, I can see that too. Where are you kind of like, if you put your thumb down on the team today, obviously it can change. Right. Right. Do you think this might be like a competitive, not in terms of like a playoff team, but like an interesting team to watch this year, whatever that win total is? Or are you a little pessimistic about how, I guess, I don't know, entertaining or competitive the play will be from this team this year? What are your expectations for these Cardinals?
I actually am probably more optimistic than most, and I'm not talking about you four gentlemen. It's simply because they have more starting pitching.
Yeah.
And it's more to it than that. I mean, it isn't just they have more starting pitching, they're deeper, they have more options. They're going to open the season with, a couple of guys probably in the minor leagues who, would have a case to open the season in the major league rotation, but there's no reason to rush that or whatever, because the Chaim Bloom's already accumulated really, really good starting pitching depth. And what I like to say though, is that I'm not trying to say it's a great rotation. I'm not saying that, it's the 68 Cardinals. It's not the 2015 Cardinals for that matter, who had a ridiculously low ERA. Well, that was a year where offense was down, but still. But I use this. It's become kind of like my, stupid human trick. I use this all the time because I've always looked at, I don't look at individual win-loss records, but I've had like really smart baseball people who are sabermetrically inclined who just said, look, tell your sports writer friends, if they're going to use win-loss records, use the team's record when a guy starts, because that's got more merit. It's not perfect, but it's got more merit. So last season, when Pallante, Fetty, and Miklasz started a game, they made 51% of the starts, by the way, 51% of the starts. I don't have it in front of me, but the Cardinals' record was the team's winning percentage when those three guys started a game was like I'm going to round it off. It was like 340 or 345. Okay. Somewhere around there. I'm sorry. I don't know that. I didn't commit it to memory, but it was 340, 345. When anybody else started, their winning percentage was like 630. Okay. Because if you think about this, those three guys, it isn't just that they weren't very good. The reason why the team's record, I think, was so bad when they were starters is because how often were the Cardinals facing an early deficit because these guys would get tagged for 2 or 3 runs early, 4 runs early, whatever. With the kind of offense they don't have, you're not gonna erase those kind of deficits. So they put them at a terrible disadvantage over and over and over again. I just think, and this certainly applies if Pallante is better, not great, but if he's more competitive, you look at this and you're like, well, wait a minute, they've got more people they can turn to. It's more solid, it's more stable. It's deeper. You're not forfeiting games because you're starting 3 guys. 51% of your starts are being made by guys that are at times just defenseless early in games. And I think that's being underestimated. I really do. And again, this takes into account that I believe Pallante will be better. I don't know how much. And then if I could just throw this in too, because I'm basing all this on starting pitching depth and solidity compared to last year. And also the fluidity of a Chaim Bloom front office where he's not going to just, no, we got to keep Fetty in the rotation, But Bloom doesn't care about that stuff. We have learned that already. He's going to keep that thing churning. That's the thing, as you guys have said. The other thing too, because when I've given my little stupid human trick stat on those 3 starters, I've gotten some pushback by people that are my friends, and they say, well, but you're not talking about Sonny Gray leaving. You're not, and I'm like, okay, time out. I said, are we talking about Sonny Gray who pitches at Busch Stadium or Sonny Gray who pitches on the road? Well, what do you mean? Well, his ERA as a starting pitcher on the road as a Cardinal was 5.07. And the team had about a 500 record when he started on the road. Sonny Gray had some holes in his game. And Sonny Gray, Ollie Marmol had to just do gymnastics so he could have Sonny Gray start 60% of his games as a Cardinal at Busch Stadium. There's some stuff underneath the surface with Sonny Gray. And by the way, I wrote and said this stuff before they traded him. Look, I respect him and I think he's good, but it's not all that it seemed to be. So even the Sonny Gray factor, the Cardinals had a losing record on the road because he didn't really help the winning cause on the road. Those other 3 guys got destroyed on the road. But when somebody else started, and that includes not having Sonny Gray start, I put him with the other 3. When those 4 guys started on the road, the team's record was incredibly bad. When anybody else started, they had a winning record. I think it was like 15-9. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being simplistic here. I don't think so. I think even if you have solid starting pitching and you have option and you have depth you have options and depth behind it. With the defense they play, in the bullpen they have, I think it'll be great again this year, or really good anyway. A solid rotation is going to make a lot of difference. And I know that's a long answer, but every time this subject comes up, I'm like really, really energized to talk about it. So, but no, I have huge concerns about the offense. Huge concerns. Thanks for letting me talk. Sorry.
No, for sure. I kind of wanted to hit on a couple things you said. First of all, like I absolutely agree where you were saying about, the pitching, the starting rotation didn't give the chance for the offense to really go out there and show out in a true fashion and keep them in the game, right? The defense the pitching just wasn't there at all. You nailed it when you mentioned Sonny Gray was a completely different pitcher away from Busch. He had a 3.9 ERA at home, over 20 starts in 2025, and in 12 starts, 67 innings away from Busch, it was a 4.92 ERA. So he was flirting with the 5 ERA at home or away, and it was just not great. And, he was striking out more hitters, but he was leading to more runs allowed on average. And to kind of give credence to what you were saying about the lineup, I was talking with one of my friends who was advocating for negating a Brendan Donovan trade in a con and not trying to make that deal. And I was like, what do you mean? They got to make this deal. They got to retool and rebuild the team. And he was saying the lineup is actually better than you think. Before they tore it down, not just with Donovan, but with the Arenado trades, the Contreras trades. Sonny was his own monster. But you kind of look at the guys who had at least 300 plate appearances. I have it pulled up here. Mason Wynn was hovering around league average and is a Gold Glove defender, 3.5 win player. Brendan Donovan, all-star, 120 WRC plus. Wilson Contreras, stud. Ivan Herrera, stud. Burleson, stud. And then you got Victor Scott, Pages. Those are 7 guys who are at least a win and a half or more with at least 300 plate appearances. And then you got Arenado and Nootbaar, Gorman, and then, the anchor that Jordan Walker was and the overall value. But that's 7 guys who you could provide pretty good. That's not a terrible lineup. And if you were to do something to build on that rotation, because yes, Sonny was not great away from Busch Stadium, but by and large, he's still a rotation caliber pitcher on a championship caliber team. And that was shown with the prospect capital they got in return. Granted, they had to eat salary no matter what because he's being paid a lot and that hurts his surplus value. But the framework, even before this teardown, was, at least from an offensive perspective, the framework for a competitive team was there. And I think you can make an outside argument, not something I would make, but I could see where where people might play devil's advocate, where you would have Sonny Gray, Matthew Liberatore as championship caliber starters, where you peg them in that spot, who knows. But if they wanted to make a run at it, maybe you push a Liam Doyle, maybe a Quinn Matthews works out, who knows. Maybe there's other, Richard, or actually no, that wouldn't make sense because they wouldn't have had Richard Fitz. Maybe other guys pan out in AAA and they roll the dice with those guys. And then JJ Weatherhold, you slot him maybe at third base and you remove Arenado and you go from 0.9 wins to maybe call it 2. That's an extra win you got above replacement. So that's still theoretical, but you could still think about a world, not many, but if you were to run this simulation 100 times this season 2026, guys, I think there are a non-insignificant number of scenarios where this team could be competitive. And if they wanted to do that, I would be opposed to it, but you can make a somewhat structured argument for them going and running for it. Although I wouldn't do it just to be on the record of that. I think you can make a decent case for that lineup being at least league average before the offseason teardown.
I think you're absolutely right, Adam, because you look at the offense from last season, which wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it wasn't horrible. Their offense in 2023 wasn't horrible either. The problem is that in both of those years, you were basically throwing a non-competitive pitcher at least 2/5 of the time. 40% of your starts were going to, Adam Wainwright in 2023, Miles Michaelis last year, Eric Fetty last year. I personally believe that if they had just cut Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis and given Michael McGreevy starts all season long. And I don't know, gone out and signed literally anybody, maybe Jose Quintana before last season. Like we said a number of times before the season, they might have been a playoff team. They might have been right there. But that's also falling right into the trap that the Cardinals themselves have fallen into. And Josh, you put me on this at some point last season. But look, the Cardinals have had like 9 good enough guys, and they've had like 4 good enough pitchers, and then a very good bullpen. And that can make a run if you get really lucky. But they've also had 0 depth. And so there's always been like a world where if your offense stays healthy, right? So if last year Herrera doesn't miss 250 to 300 plate appearances, and if in 2023 Contreras isn't hurt or if in 2024 Contreras isn't hurt for half the season, like those things help you a lot. But unfortunately, their offense hasn't been able to stay healthy enough. And it's not even like they've been exceedingly unlucky. They've just had normal injury luck. And what that happens when you have 0 depth, what happens then is you don't have it. And they haven't had the depth to back that up. And so they've been fragile, but they've thought we've got a chance. And so they've gone in and they've delayed this. So I agree with you, Adam, that there was a blueprint there. But I think they could keep falling into that trap again this year. Like, it's good enough that maybe under the Mo regime, they'd have said, let's roll the dice again. Let's see what happens. But I'm glad they didn't do that. So I know you agree with me, Adam, but I just wanted to put that out there. Like, it's a depth thing. And so, yeah, I think the biggest reason the Cardinals won't be like in the hunt for a lot of this year is because of decisions they themselves made in the past that forced them to make these decisions in the offseason, where you offloaded real talent. You know, you got rid of Wilson Contreras, who's a potential 130 WRC plus hitter, Brendan Donovan, who's probably a 120, and Nolan Arenado, who, while he's not great, is a guy that can play third base every day for you. He's still an above average defender and can be an above average hitter. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, so I think the big thing is that they're not going to want to be competitive offensively this year. But if they did want to, and like you said, Adam, there's a world where they're decent. That world probably involves not playing Walker very much. That world probably involves pulling the trigger quickly on somebody. And it involves somebody like Church or Velasquez turning into like a legitimate piece. But that world exists. So it's going to take them getting very lucky. It's going to take all their guys staying healthy. You're going to have to get 600 plate appearances from Herrera, 600 good plate appearances. But it exists. I just think they're going to get in their own way, which is fine. They probably should this year.
Well, this isn't a hot take, but something tells me they're not going to mortgage the future to make sure that this year works out there. And I think that's the biggest difference here, right? Is that we can talk ourselves into the pitching depth they have, which is exciting. And you look beyond the 6 guys competing right now, and we haven't even mentioned Hunter Dobbins, Quinn Matthews. They still have Ishan, Motts, Doyle coming. And so there is a world where this pitching gets them into an interesting spot, but they're not going to mortgage the future and what they've built up in this one offseason for the immediate gains. And I think that's the exciting part about what Bloom's building here is that I don't think, Sandy, I know you didn't mean it like this, but I don't think they don't want the offense to be good. I think they would love the offense to be good. Yeah, but if it does it with the guys that are there and that they build upon it itself and that they see that trajectory moving forward, they're not going to be that team who goes and makes the deadline splash. That's like, hey, let's try and catch lightning in a bottle here. I think they would love for this team to be competitive this year because it tells you you're at least closer than what I think a lot of people think you are. But I think they know full well 2026 is not the end goal here, and that anything they get this year is gravy. That helps them build to 2027, 2028, and that's exactly where they need to be. And they need to stay in that lane, and I trust they will stay in that lane.
You know what?
I agree with you.
I'm gonna merge my opinion with Sandy's and Adam's. And say, what's he doing here? I'm gonna merge it because if your point about the offense, okay, I still don't. I do know how the Cardinals managed to win 78 games last year. But if you think about how bad that rotation was, and by the way, I was doing something on my pad over here. Last year, Miklasz, Fetty, and Andre Palante, the ERA, they're collectively ERA the first 3 innings of a start, 6.24. Not good. So you're not going to get destroyed as often early in games. But anyway, after the season, it's like how the heck did Oli Marmol, who of course is the worst manager in the history of organized baseball, how did they manage to win 78 games with that awful starting pitching and a limited, shall we say, offense? And we know they played good D, and we know that Oli and Dusty Blake are fantastic at setting up a bullpen, and they're creative with it. But So to get back to my thing, I think you guys are right. I think there's more potential with the offense than I think, because I'm kind of like I've succumbed to just like getting tired of watching their offense without thinking, well, there's some upside here, some upside there. So I'm glad you guys talked about that. But if you have upgraded your rotation, and they have, in my opinion, and they've added more depth, and I know I'm saying that over and over again, you win 78 games with a combination of factors you had last year. Well, why the hell couldn't you win 78 this year? You're going to be better with your rotation. Your bullpen, I assume, is going to be really strong again. And if the offense is, like you fellas said, if it's even around league average or slightly above league average, well, makes a pretty big difference, So I merged. See, did I do okay merging our two opinions a little bit?
Love it. Well, before we wrap up our conversation today, we always want to thank the presenting sponsor of the Deal in the Cards podcast, 314 Sports Cards Collectibles. Bernie knows them. He's been there for our charity live stream before. They're located 9640 Boulevard in Olivet, open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. Buy, sell, and trade all sports cards, Pokemon cards. Make sure you go check them out. They're awesome to work with. They've got all the new sets and stuff that are coming in for the new season. If you're chasing some of those rookie cards or prospect cards like Raniel Rodriguez, Liam Doyle, all those types of cards, go check out 314. They are the place to shop. Bernie, on the way out, do you have any last takes you want to give before we wrap up? We'll have to have you on again soon. We went way too long of a gap between the last two times, and so I can't let that happen again.
You guys invited me a couple times, but I just couldn't do it. Thursdays that's probably my busiest day of the weekday schedule, but I'm happy to do it because I always enjoy it. No, I'm actually I'll just say this on the way out. I am genuinely excited about this season, not because I'm delusional and think, well, the Cardinals are going to upset everybody and they're going to shock the world. And I'm not because of that, because I'm so excited by the difference in this organization from John Mozeliak to Chaim Bloom, and all the people that came with Chaim Bloom, and all the people that have already transformed this farm system in a remarkable way, and one that is truly exciting. And it's hard to see the stuff. If you're a fan, it's kind of hard to see the stuff below the surface, right? But the Cardinals have so much going on below the surface, and you don't see it, but there's some really wonderful things happening down below. And there's going to be more and more young players cycling in, better talent cycling in. So this rebuild was overdue, but now that it's here, I'm all in on it, and I have been, because I think they had to do it, and they found the right guy to run it. And they're starting a new era, and it's a new era that I think holds a lot of promise, And it's such a positive step forward. And I don't care how many games they win this year. It's such a positive step forward from being in that mediocre, mundane, maybe we'll get a wild card, we'll get lucky existence that they've been living for way too long.
For sure.
And going out trying to buy pitchers who are at the end of their careers or what. I mean, just they finally have a direction, and it's worth any of the short-term pain to get to where it's going to go. I'm really excited about it, and it starts 2 weeks from today.
For sure. And Sandy's been on this for a little bit. I'm starting to believe, like, as this year goes on, like you said, Bernie, a lot of stuff we can't see. I think fans are going to become more and more aware of how different and exciting this group is behind the scenes in terms of one making the decisions, and they'll start to give it a chance in a way that I think there are some that are just kind of out right now and they're frustrated, and we don't blame them. It's been a rough few years, but I'm excited about the direction they're headed in, and I know we're all excited to follow it as we go through. So Bernie, we always appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging with us today. We have so much love for you. Hey, if you're listening for the first time dealing cards today, like and subscribe, helps channel a ton. We got a bunch of different kinds of content coming out here, whether it's Called to the Pen with Trevor Rosenthal, Birds on the Farm, some of the stuff Adam's putting out with Tyler and Aiden, Sandy and Andrew and I are here as always. And Bernie, obviously you've got so much going on, whether it's KMOX, Sports Central, all types of things. So we really appreciate you carving out some time today, man.
We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Well,
except I filibuster, so you have to get me to cut down on my
you're giving the people what they want. We love it. We love it.
They've been listening to me for way too long. I probably cost you an audience more than added to it. So anyway.
Oh no way, no way.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time, Bernie, Sandy, Adam. Always good to be with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bernie.